Welcome to a very special edition of Spread the Light. I'm your host, Dr. Devika Bhushan. I'm a pediatrician, a public health leader, a parent, an immigrant, and a person with bipolar disorder. Here at Spread the Light, we use the power of lived experience to help dispel stigma and stereotypes, and instead spread hope and light. This year, in honor of World Bipolar Day, which is today, the day of Vincent van Gogh's birthday, I've got some friends together to help bust some very common myths about bipolar disorder. Estimates vary, but it's somewhere between 1 in 22 people to 1 in 38 people who will be diagnosed with either bipolar 1 or 2 disorder in their lifetimes. And we're everywhere. We're your colleagues, your bosses, your friends, your neighbors. And when we're well, we thrive as leaders, as professionals, as parents, as grandparents, as partners, and as people. The odds are every one of us knows somebody with bipolar disorder, and likely we know them intimately. But we may not know that they have bipolar disorder because of the pervasive stigma and stereotypes that accompany living with this disorder. I've been told in sharing my own journey with bipolar disorder that, quote, "You don't act bipolar. I would have never guessed that you have bipolar disorder." Let's think about what that means. Let's unpack those statements for a second. What it means is that there's a pervasive narrative and a set of stereotypes out there in the world about who has bipolar disorder and what they look like and who doesn't. Often we have in our minds this pervasive notion that it's somebody who is unpredictable, maybe violent, maybe impulsive, untrustworthy, irrational, or highly emotional. Well, I'm here to tell you that when bipolar disorder is well treated, people with bipolar disorder are none of these things. And there's actually no way to tell from the outside which of us has bipolar disorder and which of us doesn't. In other words, bipolar disorder doesn't have a face. When well treated, we look just like anybody else. Next up, hear from my colleague and friend, Major General Gregg Martin, retired from the U.S. Army. Greg is also a loved husband, parent, grandparent, and person with bipolar disorder.
Hello, I'm Major General Gregg Martin, U.S. Army retired. I've been living with bipolar disorder for 20 years and on the spectrum of manic depressive illness for decades prior to that. Mental conditions are physiologically real, like diabetes. They are not due to weakness of character. Battling them is as heroic as battling cancer.
Hear from Joanna Jarecki. She is a psychiatrist, a parent, and a person with bipolar disorder.
Hello, my name is Joanna Jarecki. I'm a psychiatrist and I also have bipolar disorder. And I remember one of the biggest concerns that I had when I was first diagnosed was I was worried that having this condition meant that I wouldn't be able to have my own children and raise a family. I can happily say that that was not the case. I have 2 healthy, happy children. And as a psychiatrist, I have also worked with many individuals with bipolar disorder and witnessed that it is absolutely possible to manage this condition and be a loving and healthy parent. Are there special considerations? Absolutely, especially around pregnancy and the postpartum period. It is critical to have a doctor who is working with you to make sure that medications are optimized and that medications are safe for the baby, and also ensuring proper sleep, exercise, and nutrition during that critical period. And of course, the postpartum period can be challenging for any parent. And with bipolar condition, of course, with the sensitivity to changes in sleep schedule, it's really critical to have a solid plan with your healthcare provider and to involve the loved ones and other supports that can help to really ensure protecting critical sleep time. And when that plan and the supports are put into place, it is absolutely possible to navigate that period with health and stability. And I will say that my children have been the greatest mood stabilizing force in my life. Kids need a regular schedule. And so keeping my kids on their regular schedule really helps me stay on track with mine. And that is a foundation for mood stability. And the great thing is that what keeps my kids healthy and happy is what also keeps me well. So it really becomes a family affair. We all make sure to get the sleep that we need, exercise, nutrition, and love, connection, and fun that keeps all of us well. And most importantly, my kids are the greatest source of joy in my life. They are such an incredible mood booster and, such incredible motivators for working hard to be the healthiest and the best version of myself. So based on my personal and professional experience, I can say with confidence that managing bipolar disorder and being a healthy and loving parent is absolutely possible.
Next up, hear from Andy Dunn, entrepreneur, author of Burn Rate, parent, and person with bipolar disorder.
Today's myth on bipolar, the idea that medicine is necessarily going to dull you. I know where this comes from. When I was 20 years old and I was diagnosed with bipolar 1, I was prescribed with a big pink pill. I started taking it and I felt totally numbed. So I did what was logical and I went off of it. And unfortunately, there was then a 16-year gap between when I went back on the medication. And during that 16 years, I went through a lot of really brutal highs and lows, a lot of hypomania, a lot of severe depression. And it wasn't until the mania came back and I was hospitalized again that I realized I just need to commit. I need to go all in on this idea that I need to take medication every day. And I did. And it took time. It took, I would say, 6 months to figure out the right medications and the right dosages and the right circumstances. And I can confidently tell you that it doesn't dull me anymore. And I feel amazing and so grateful that these medications exist. So don't give up. You're going to get there.
Next, we'll hear from Sarah Schlay, entrepreneur, activist, author of Brainstorm, parent, grandparent, and person with bipolar disorder.
Hi, my name is Sarah Schlay. I'm an author, an activist, an entrepreneur, and I live on the bipolar spectrum with bipolar 2. The myth that I want to dispel is that bipolar equals manic depression. When you hear the term bipolar, what comes to mind? Wild highs, extreme mood swings, irresponsible sprees. They're actually articulating just one end of the bipolar spectrum, bipolar 1. But now we know that bipolar exists on a spectrum. People with bipolar 2 brains do not act manic. Because we don't act manic, and we do have classic depressive symptoms, we are consistently misdiagnosed with classical depression and then prescribed antidepressants, which can be dangerous for our brains. But the good news is people living on the bipolar spectrum with the right diagnosis, treatment, and wellness practices can live rich and full lives.
Next up is Andrea Vasilev, a doctoral student in clinical psychology, the creator of a program to reduce self-stigma in bipolar disorder, and somebody with bipolar disorder herself.
My name's Andrea Vasilev. I'm a doctoral student in clinical psychology and have lived with bipolar disorder for 25 years. I'm also the creator of the program Overcoming Self-Stigma in Bipolar Disorder. You can learn more at ossibd.com. The myth I want to bust is that bipolar is a descriptor or an adjective or a personality trait that can be used to apply to anybody. Have you ever heard someone say, "Oh my gosh, she's so bipolar"? It's usually used to refer to someone who's being highly emotional, not to an actual medical diagnosis. Being emotional or being irritable is a normal experience for all people. It's not specific to bipolar disorder. Also, having bipolar disorder is not just about having big emotions. There's so much more to it. This language is extremely harmful and we have to stop using it.
Finally, let's hear from Dr. Justin Bullock, a physician and a person with bipolar disorder, who first shared his truth with the world in 2020. He's been a shining light to me and many others in and outside the field of medicine because of his outstanding authenticity and vulnerability. So he is the perfect person to round us out today with a truth about bipolar disorder.
Hello, everyone. My name is Justin Bullock. I am a nephrology fellow at the University of Washington. And the myth about bipolar that I want to challenge is that hypomania or mania looks the same for everyone. I'd say for me, when I get sped up, I like to do things like work on research for 12 hours straight, not getting up, going to the bathroom, or I really save my money very intensely and get focused on investing, not necessarily risky investing, but just putting away a lot of money. I think this is in contrast to what a lot of people say about bipolar disorder, which is when you spend all your money, you go off and do very reckless and impulsive things. And that's certainly the experience for some people, but not the experience for me. I do have some times where I'm impulsive and I do things that I typically wouldn't do without thinking as carefully. But other aspects don't necessarily fit the common narrative of bipolar.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us on this special edition of Spread the Light on World Bipolar Day, where we busted some common bipolar disorder myths. I hope you learned something, and let us know in the comments what myth you might add to our list. Take care, everybody.